I'm here to tell you a little bit more today about the National Robotarium and our plans. So, similar to Michael, I've got a little video to show you first, which I'd like to use to set the scene, to show you a little bit about the state of the art of robotics. There we go.
Hey, Figures, can you come here? Okay, I'd like to try something new. Even though this is the very first time that you've ever seen these items, I'd like you to use your new Helix AI and try to reason through where you think they belong in the scene, and then work together to put them away. Does that sound good?
Controversial moment. Does the ketchup go in the fridge or not? So I'll just point out this key moment, folks. One robot had an apple, the other one had a bowl for the apple to go in. The way they looked at each other, they were communicating with each other. So this is just giving a little bit of information about those robots, but why I wanted to share this video with you today was to give you an idea of where robotics is at the moment. Now this is the forefront of robotics, what we call humanoid robotics, and that's a hot topic of discussion in the sort of robotics sector at the moment for a number of reasons. So this video is maybe 6 months old. There's another video about a year older than that, where it was one of these figure robots. It had a big heavy battery pack on its back. It was one robot, it was not working together, and it needed much more interaction from a human. So the point I wanted to get across there, and referring back to what Michael was talking about in terms of large language models really pushing technology on and there being a step change, that's where the robotics industry is converging at the moment on those sort of humanoid robotics. Now, why is that important? So first of all, we have a humanoid robot up at the National Robotarium, more of which in a moment, and we paid about £20,000 for that, for a G1 robot from Unitree, a Chinese-based company or China-based company. But Elon Musk, think of him what you will, is talking about selling his humanoid robots for about $16,000, so far less than, you know, a new family car, and be selling 1 million of them per annum by 2027. So essentially what I'm trying to tell you is the robots are coming, not in a scary way. But why are humanoids in particular of interest? As you've saw there, those humans are interacting with the environment that we've built for ourselves. At the moment, we're quite concerned with robots that are doing specific tasks in the environment that we've built for ourselves. So something like a floor cleaning robot, how does that get through a door? It either can't, and a human has to come and do it, or it needs some kind of adaptation, either to the door, some kind of Bluetooth system, or even a mechanical arm to be able to open that door. That's another development. It adds cost, it adds time, it adds complexity. A humanoid robot can open a door the way we can. It can walk upstairs the way we can. So if that humanoid robot has got the capabilities of a floor cleaning robot, you could put a mop in the hands of that humanoid robot. It could do the task of the individual robot, but you could also program it to do another task too, or it could learn to do another task too. So I just wanted to plant that seed at this point. So I've mentioned the National Robotarium. Has anyone heard of the National Robotarium? No? Interesting. Oh, you have, Michael. Fantastic. That's good news. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we do. As you're possibly aware, the UK is way behind the curve in terms of adoption of robotics. By a couple of measures, we use robotics companies HQ'd in a territory or number of robotics deployed in industry. And by both measures, we're down we're in the 20s. There are non-G7 countries ahead of us, the likes of Turkey, Mexico, ahead of the UK in terms of adoption of robotics. So we really are quite far behind the curve. Hence the investment in this building. So this is where I am lucky enough to work a couple of days a week. So this is the National Robotarium. It's built on the Heriot Watt campus, Heriot Watt University campus. But I will say this at the beginning, we are the UK's National Robotarium. So we work across the whole of the UK and we strive to be globally significant. So we're collaborating overseas too. So please don't think because we're located in Scotland that precludes us working with the NHS in England. It absolutely doesn't, and we're already having conversations with the NHS in England. So I'll just get that out there immediately. So we are part of what's called the Data-Driven Innovation Initiative, which is Edinburgh's City Region deal. So that aims to make Edinburgh the digital capital of Europe. Why not globally? I don't know. I'd have been a bit more ambitious, but there we go. So we're a small part of that. So we got around just over 20 million from the UK and Scottish governments to build and stock this place with robots to bring us back up to that global curve of robotics adoption. And that's what we're working on within this building. We do that in a number of ways. So these are our four activities that we hope by doing them in conjunction are going to have that sort of multiplier effect. So what we do, the main part of what we do is what we call industry adoption. Now, industry is sort of a higher education parlance, but that absolutely includes public sector too. And I spend the vast majority of my time working with NHS and care professionals. So where I say industry, it does mean the public sector too, including the healthcare sector. And what we're trying to do there, very similar to what Michael referred to, is getting that innovation, that blue skies technology out into the real world so it can have impact. Now, I have a team of around 12 robotics engineers working in that building every single day. What I'm finding more and more, the longer I work in robotics, it's less about the mechanics, it's less about the technology, and it's more and more about the people. So where I talk about industry adoption, yes, that is the mechanics, yes, that is deploying physical robots into a space, but it's everything that goes around it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that methodology in a moment, because that stakeholder engagement and that dialogue back and forward is something that's incredibly important for us to be able to achieve our mission of more people using more robots more of the time. If you take nothing else away from this speech today, more people, more robots, more of the time. We do that by accelerating research out into the real world. So within the National Robotarium, there are a number of laboratories, and my research and academic colleagues are in there every single day doing their blue skies research, where it's an idea in their head, out into what we call the TRL, the technology readiness levels. I don't know if that's a familiar concept, but essentially developed, I think, by NASA in the 60s to see how ready things were to go into space. TRL 1 being a bright idea, TRL 9 being, right, it's ready to go off into space. It's commercially available. So my research colleagues take things from TRL 1, these fantastic ideas, up to about TRL 3, 4, and then the industry adoption part, that's where my team comes in and accelerates things right through the TRL scale and out into the real world. We also, part of that sort of pathway is we do startup support. So we were originally funded to have 3 or 4 startups with us. We're now up at 12, so that's an important thing to remember because it shows demand. We're bursting at the seams, essentially, and that forms part of our ambition that I'll touch on in a moment. And then the last part, which is incredibly important and something that's quite close to my heart, is the talent and skills development. We call this Shaping the Future. Now that includes things like conversations around standardization, regulation, ethics. How do we use AI ethically? And again, I'm sure that's something Michael could touch on perhaps in the question and answer session later. So that's how do we build this sector in the UK that's going to serve everyone in the UK equitably, and how do we build a talent and skills pipeline that's going to generate the talent of the future to make this sector happen. So just a little illustration here of the complexity behind the scenes. What we're trying to do is, I don't know if you can see this particularly clearly, but there's a number of different entities and organisations that we as the National Robotarium need to link up to enable a robotics sector in this country. Research alone cannot develop a robotics sector in this country. We need to be linking up research with industry, with government, with global robotics communities, and the National Robotarium aims to be these links between all of these different entities. So I spoke a little bit earlier about how we work and why dialogue is so important. So this is one of our standard services that we've developed over the last couple of years, and we call this our road mapping service. So this is essentially a manifestation of us going out and talking with industry or with the healthcare sector, with a range of stakeholders in that organisation and understanding what are your challenges. And we're not coming at this from, here's a robot, will this solve your problem? It's, what is your problem? Perhaps a robot can solve it. Let's go back and forwards, let's have a conversation and understand if robotics is going to be the right solution. But again, just deploying a robotic solution into whether that be a hospital or a production line, if it's not solving a problem along the continuum of the workflow, you might be creating problems further down the line. So something that we've developed at this road mapping service, whereby we go out to industry, to a healthcare setting perhaps, we understand what are the range of challenges that you're experiencing, and then we will go in that dialogue way, we'll understand, okay, what are the potential solutions here? And then we'll understand what is important to that entity. Is it cost saving? Is it net zero? Is it patient safety? Infection control, perhaps? And then we'll weight those different criteria and we'll come up with a ranking of, okay, what are the next challenges that we want to solve? What are the initial challenges and what are the pipeline of challenges that we're going to solve, and how are they all going to come together in a holistic way? So this example here is with a life sciences operation up in Scotland. So as you can see, we came up with, well, at least 43 potential projects. We can't do 43 projects all at once, so we've come up with the top 2, and the top 2 is what we're taking forward with that particular organisation. Where are we getting to with healthcare? So the National Robotarium is across the board. We're working with NASA, we're working with agri-tech, we're working with security, construction. But as I say, I spend most of my time in the health sector. And I'm going to be honest with you, we're not a profit-making entity, but we do need to keep the lights on. I have not brought in 1 penny. Lead for business development for health. I have not brought in 1 penny from health into the National Robotarium in 3 years. We really, if we were a business, we should be spending our time on the other industries. However, health and care is of the utmost importance to us, so we're investing our time in it. Not only because it's so important to all of us, it's one of society's biggest challenges, especially with an ageing population, but also we can see the potential impacts, and it's something that we're really investing our time and effort in. So a few examples here of projects that are going on out of the National Robotarium at the moment. This looks like a video, but I won't play it at the moment. This is in the top corner here. This is one of our companies that are based with us called Touch Lab. Now, at the moment, robotics, a lot of robotics have a sense of vision. They can see what's in front of them. They're using computer vision techniques. Most robotics don't have a sense of touch, and that makes them clumsy, because every animal, almost every animal that's evolved has got some kind of sense of touch. So that's what Touch Lab are developing, essentially a skin for a robot that can sense touch. And that's really important if you're picking something up, if you're picking an egg up, at the moment, that's just on pressure. What Touch Lab can do can detect if it's slipping and just in real time, just increase the pressure ever so slightly so it can detect that slip. That's really important. Say on the production line I talked about before, the life sciences, if something goes wrong on their production line, that's closed down for 24 hours until the leaks are all cleared up. So that's a really important development. What they have done, they've deployed their robotic skin on a healthcare robot in a hospital in Finland. It's called the Valky robot, and it's going into, say, a patient's room with specific infections where you don't want to send people into, going back to that 3Ds, the dull, the dirty, and the dangerous. So they've developed a system whereby a robot can go into that room and maybe check a patient's vitals, can help turn that person if they need turning in their bed, do things like brush their hair. That's had an absolutely fantastic reception in Finland. More examples here. This is another company that are based with us called BioLiberty, and this glove that you see in here, that's a pneumatic cell on the back, and that's to help people recover from, say, stroke. So it's a rehabilitation glove. 2 of their 4 directors have just gone over to the US. They're US-based investors. I've told them, if you've got anything in your profit and loss against the NHS in the UK, take it out. We're not interested, because the NHS is too difficult to get into. There's other examples. They're all overseas, essentially, is the point I'm trying to get across here. I've just had my 5-minute warning. Oh, it is showing. So what we've come up with, and the concept I want to get across to you today, is the NHS. We don't tend to get much resistance. Everyone I'm speaking to in the NHS is telling me, we need robots, we need automation. How can we make it happen? What the NHS doesn't need to do is get up that learning curve. We're the National Robotarium. You've got this national entity there. What we want to do is sit shoulder to shoulder with the NHS, and we're getting a lot of traction in Scotland on this at the moment, and we're having initial conversations with the NHS in England. This is, again, if you're going to take anything away from today's talk, I'd like you to take this concept here away. So it's the National Robotarium sitting shoulder to shoulder with NHS leadership. We've got such huge buying power in the NHS. How can we enable the suppliers to the NHS to start driving robotic adoption into the NHS? But how can we do that in a controlled manner? And that's where this concept comes into its own in the middle here. A national health robotarium is what we're suggesting. I can share these slides afterwards, and I'd be more than happy to have conversations about what this means. We're short on time at the moment. We do have some 15 minutes for questions at the end of this. But please be in contact. I can share my contact details again. We're keen to talk to everyone in the NHS, and there are a potential for adoption of robotics in all areas. Often we'll say robotics, healthcare, and people immediately jump to surgical robotics. I do almost nothing in surgical robotics, but things like floor cleaning robots, things like pharmacy robots, things that make the NHS work behind the scenes. That's what we're interested in, and that's where we think we can have the biggest impact. So I'll skip through a few slides. Again, I can share them afterwards. But really what we're looking to do is use the National Health Service. At the moment, it's a cost centre. Through the adoption of robotics, through the supporting organisations such as BioLiberty or Touch Lab that we talked about, that are building viable businesses within the UK with fantastic jobs and fantastic teams, by supporting them to get their robotics into the NHS, we can also support the economy and build a robotics sector in this country. More taxes in the pot, more investment into the NHS, and it's that positive cycle. That's what we're aiming for here. And I'll leave you with our vision for robotics for health. I'm sure you can all... Can everyone see that? Is it worth me reading it out very briefly? So we envision a national health service at the forefront of the healthcare revolution globally, where staff teams are seamlessly supported by robotics and artificial intelligence. The NHS would be in a strong, informed position to procure services and supplies, and staff teams would be empowered to implement technology that would make a real difference to the health and wealth of the nation. Thank you.